So the first episode is immediately the parents um inviting Dan to supper so they can steal his recipe because I guess it's really close to her mother's of deviled eggs that she likes. And I found it weird simply because last season they didn't even show up for Elise's birthdays. They just sent her cards. Once again, I know it didn't really work for the plot, but still weird. Um The Mall Santa, Mark Hamill returns. He was the dentist in season 1, and now he's playing a Santa that doesn't like Christmas because of the typical, you know, he never got a toy when he was little, so he quit believing in Santa, and Christmas sucks now. Just kind of stupid. It was a somewhat entertaining episode. Just a very, very cliche plot. Um, the neighbors, Dan gets new neighbors. He thinks they're cannibals, so he tries to kill them. He also tries to put roaches in their apartment at one point. Becomes friends with them near the end of the episode, and then casually mentions all the terrible stuff he was gonna do to them because he thought they were bad people. Which obviously kind of makes him like, what the fuck is wrong with this dude? And then the roaches end up getting into their apartment anyway because they fall off the satellite that I don't even know how they got up there. They had got out of his box earlier in the episode, so he didn't even get to use them. But I guess they were just sitting on a satellite that was close by to the house, so worked out anyway. Dancing. That one was kind of boring. Elise just wanted to dance because her parents didn't let her. So her and Chris dance. She ends up getting Dan to help her. It's something. The bank. Dan wants to rob the bank because he goes to an ATM and he uses it and it makes him take out $2 out of his bank account when he's only getting 5, which isn't the problem. The thing is, they changed it. Now it's like 50 cents, $2.50. So he's mad that they robbed him or whatever. So he tries to rob the bank, which helps Elise because her government job needs money or something, and that bank was the one that kind of screwed him over. It's an odd episode. The monster under the bed is actually a bit of a plot twist. This time, the big problem was Chris. He wanted a break from Dan, so he made this whole made-up monster. It was a very interesting episode, and Dan even has a neighbor in this episode that does not show up again for the entire season, though. It's just a little girl that teases him for being afraid of monsters. And then, like, the second time she shows up, Dan scares her. Golf. Chris gets attached to golf and then quits being, helpful with Elise because apparently they're doing charities and stuff now and he won't help anymore because he's attached to golf. The gym, didn't really care for that one. The wedding, Dan's girlfriend from last season shows up and they say that she has a new boyfriend or something. Honestly, really wasn't into this episode. A lot of episodes I wasn't really into this season. The Cat Burglar is a knockoff of old crime shows. It's okay. It works. A dinosaur comes back to life because of the government. Dan realizes him and the dinosaur are alike, so he stops himself from killing it, but he still sends it a bill because it destroyed his car in the beginning of the episode. Stupidity. Dan is mad at stupidity. This one doesn't even have an ending. Each episode has like Dan getting back at it or something. But this episode ends with everybody like still being really stupid. It just feels like a very pointless episode. Dan points out that people are starting to be stupid. It's apparently this whole plan that the mayor, government, whatever has, and he's trying to make everything stupid. And once Dan accidentally gets ants on himself and Chris accidentally sets himself on fire, they're like, oh, well, we're done with this place. Everybody's stupid. You know, it just kind of ends. It's a very odd episode. Telemarketer, they bring back the dude that tried to steal Dan's identity. They mentioned that Chris used to be a telemarketer, so this was the thing I actually forgot to talk about in season 1. Season 1, it's a reoccurring thing that he's unemployed. He never gets fired. But there was one scene I remember him being called at work while he was at a desk job by Dan, and he's like, Dan, I'm at work, you can't call me. So I guess that was supposed to be when he was a telemarketer or something. They kind of forget about it and always mention that he's unemployed. And that's a reoccurring thing. Well, in this episode, they mentioned that he used to be a telemarketer. So I'm guessing that's what his job was in season 1. Anyways, Dan keeps getting calls from him until eventually he goes to jail, which he's happy with because now he won't get any calls from the guy, and the guy is just like, you need to let this go. And now he's on a beach or something. It's odd. It had its moments, but I really don't know what they were going for. Reality TV, they make fun of reality TV. They do a very predictable thing near the end of the episode where it turns out that the thing that Dan wanted to go to was a part of reality TV too. And he gets attacked by wolves or something off screen. I don't remember the exact animals. Honestly, don't really remember much about Parents. It was just some episode where Dan found a kid he liked and tried to steal him from other parents because he didn't like kids or something. He thought kids were stupid, and then eventually he tried to adopt a kid. It was an odd episode. Uganda Mart closes down one of Dan's favorite places, so he's mad at it. Eventually, Elise shrinks it. You know, Chris gets attached to it too, just like golf. So kind of a repeat episode where he just gets super attached to something and can't stop. So then Elise and Dan have to intervene. So just a repeat episode. Dan actually gets mad at Chris. This should have been the final. But Dan ends up wanting to kill Chris. They have this shared love interest of a show that Dan apparently introduced him to, and Dan also showed him the radio host thing that he was listening to on his radio. Then Chris picks up the phone, tries to call, and he answers the question after Dan gives him the answer. So Dan is really pissed that Chris won't give it to him because he was the one that told him about the radio and introduced him to the show. So they get into a big fight throughout like the entire episode. And then Dan gets sent to Siberia by the end because the parents had put something on the toilet that they were trying to get Chris to go through. But he never went to the bathroom. So, didn't happen. In Wild West Town, I honestly don't remember anything about this episode. Maybe it's supposed to be season 3 because I already watched all of season 2. I don't know. But, you know, season 2 was definitely underwhelming compared to season 1. It wasn't bad, just not as good as season 1.